Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Rasulullah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa wala. Allahumma la sahla illa ma ja'altahu sahla wa anta taj'alul hazna idha shi'ta sahlan sahla. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Allahumma akhrijna min dhulumatil wahm ila nuril fahm wa akrimna bi ma'rifatil ilmi wa zayyin akhlaqana bil hilmi ya arhamar rahimin. Ameen, ameen. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Amma ba'd. Jazakumullah khair for being with us in this workshop today about the foundations of a successful marriage. I pray that Allah Azza wa Jal blesses all those here who are not yet married with good spouses that'll help fulfill their lives, bring them closer to Allah Azza wa Jal, and attain the best of this dunya and the best of the akhirah. Allahumma ameen. And secondly, I'd like to thank Ustaza Amal, inshallah soon to be Dr. Amal bi'idhnillah, for the presentation, a very beautiful presentation. I really encourage you to follow up on what she said. Go to the FYI's website, the Family and Youth Institute's website. They actually have a lot of resources that we could benefit from as a community altogether. It's not just about marriage things, by the way. They have a lot of other different types of toolkits. They address mental health issues, struggles for the youth, and struggles for the family as a whole. So there's a wealth of information you could find out there. Inshallah, there'll be many more opportunities for the community to benefit from you, Sister Amal, inshallah, Ya Rabb. And just to give you guys an idea about where we're going with this, we have 3 speakers. It's about 3 hours long. Sister Amal was speaking about preparing for marriage. A lot of the investment, time investment, and effort that needs to be made in a decision that has very far-reaching effects. You know, because being very clear, the reality we live in, marriage is a real critical decision. Its effects are very far-reaching. It could affect you for a lifetime or for years on end. It could define how certain dynamics in your life will be forever changed, inshallah, for the better. That's our hope in Allah Azza wa Jal. But still, with that in mind, it's okay to be very careful, vigilant. It's okay to hesitate a little, because it's not an easy decision to make. And when you make that decision, it's a difficult decision to withdraw from. As Allah Azza wa Jal describes it in the Quran, وَأَخَذْنَا مِنْكُمْ مِيثَاقًا غَلِيظًا. That agreement, that contract between husband and wife is mithaq ghalidh. It's an augmented covenant. It's something that is very serious. That's why the Quran refers to it as uqdatun nikah. It's like in English we say, tying the knot. It's not something that should be easily undone. Yeah, the process of marriage isn't very difficult in terms of the logistics. You go to City Hall, you apply for a marriage license, you set a date with the Shaykh, and the whole process will be done in maybe 10, 20 minutes, and that's it. Husband and wife, few words, that's it, you're married. That's it, very easy. In terms of the actual logistics of doing a aqd zawaj, a katb kitab. Yeah, but in fact, the amount of energy it'll consume from the husband and wife and the families is immense. It needs a lot of thought and processing. It needs a lot of preparation. And that investment and preparation actually needs to start way before marriage. It doesn't start when I'm actually in the hot seat, so to say. And Sister Amal mentioned this, that statistics show that if people actually take the time to invest and prepare for their marriages, they seek advice, they seek counseling, and then they'll find that a lot of doors will be unlocked. It'll be very likely that they'll succeed in their endeavor. And that's something that we all really want to succeed in our marriages and building our families. The reality of today is very alarming, with a divorce rate that's so high, with many people, even if they don't get divorced, just not being happy in their marriages. All of this warrants a lot of thought and reflection, brothers and sisters, because the responsibility is just not on one party. It's not on the husband alone. It's not on the wife alone. It's not just on the bride and groom. In fact, it's on the families. It's on the community. That investment is something that is generational. That's something, and that's why ICPC and its culture, we're trying to open doors for marriage. The Prophet ﷺ taught us to have that attitude, to give people outlets to experience al-halal al-tayyib. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ even had that same attitude. When he spoke about marriage, the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا جَاءَكُم مَّن تَرْضَوْنَ دِينَهُ وَخُلُقَهُ فَزَوِّجُوهُ إِلَّا تَفْعَلُوا تَكُنْ فِتْنَةٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَفَسَادٌ كَبِيرٌ. The Prophet ﷺ, he set that precedent of opening the doors to halal tayyib, making experiencing halal easy for people, enjoyable for people. And he said that if you don't make that process easy, then what you'll actually be doing is causing fitna in the ard. It is causing corruption in the land. Fasadun kabir, as that hadith mentions. So this decision is real critical. And one of the questions we got in the Q&A was about, can I have certain conditions that I want in a spouse? Can I be looking for something that's either physical or material, something outward? Can I have that as a condition? Well, as Sister Amal was saying, yeah, the person can make any condition they want in what they're searching for in a spouse, but be very careful. Priorities are key. And the decisions I make, I'm going to live with that. That's why it's so important to empower our sons and daughters to choose for themselves, because they're the ones who are going to build that home, build their family together. The Prophet ﷺ tells us that تُنْكَحُ الْمَرْأَةُ لِأَرْبَعٍ. The Prophet ﷺ said that reasons for getting married can be summed up in 4. He said, لِجَمَالِهَا وَلِمَالِهَا وَحَسَبِهَا وَدِينِهَا. The Prophet ﷺ said that, one reason people get married is for outward attraction. It's not just about women and men. It's about physical attraction sometimes. It's about family sometimes. It's about financial prosperity sometimes. And sometimes it's about deen. There's a choice that needs to be made. There's a choice that needs to be made by both the bride and the groom, who they want to spend the rest of their life with. That choice, I better think very clearly about it. I very well should have my priorities clear in my mind. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, فَاظْفَرْ بِذَاتِ الدِّينِ تَرِبَتْ يَدَاكَ. Make sure you make character your priority, khuluq. Make sure you make deen and religion your priority. Make sure you're getting married to a good person. Yeah, people will choose whatever they'll choose. And sometimes they'll wish they make a different choice. And sometimes they'll be so elated and thankful that they were guided to the right choice. Think about that, brothers and sisters. Because when something comes easy, when something's not forced, because some people, the way they approach marriage is, this has to happen. If this doesn't happen, I will never be happy. If this doesn't happen, I'm doomed for failure. I need to get married to fulan or fulana. My life cannot happen any other way. Anyone who approaches marriage with that attitude is seeking a lot of heartache and pain. Because my happiness is never something outward. It's never about something outward. It's something inward, brothers and sisters. As we're approaching the subject of marriage, if I perceive that I'll somehow get married and then I'll be happy, then I have a great misconception about the subject of marriage. No. I'm happy because there's certain things inside that make me a happy person. My relationship with Allah, my service to others, the way I spend my time, my purpose in life, my drive, that's what makes me happy. But as for building a life with a spouse, we can create that happiness. We can cultivate that happiness. Sometimes when people approach the subject of marriage, they approach it with a very fairy tale image. I fell in love with fulana, and that we're going to live happily ever after, and we're going to be, because we just love each other and so on. But no, in actuality, a lot of the times that's infatuation. True love is something that's built up through, again, sleepless nights, through difficulty for caring for a sick child, through dealing with difficult situations, overcoming adversity. All of that, when connected with something beautiful, connected with Allah Azza wa Jal, that makes the bond of marriage strengthen. So brothers and sisters, my segment, as I was saying, so Sister Amal was speaking about preparing for marriage. My segment is about character in marriage, the foundations of a healthy marriage, making sure that we preserve our homes, that we build our homes the right way. And our beloved Shaykh Qatanani will fill in all the gaps, and I can't wait to learn from him about the conflicts and solutions, about common challenges that husbands and wives face. Those challenges sometimes start from the very early days. Sometimes many marriages are doomed for failure from the get-go because of certain challenges that are ill-managed. Some marriages are doomed for failure, or engagements are doomed for failure because of challenges that are ill-managed. So many things that with a good mentor, with good advice, can actually be overcome, that we could see past them, that we can, if we have our priorities straight as we're going into this, then we could perhaps get past all the distractions and see beyond to what's actually most important. And I don't know if you thought about that. Are we prepared? In Sister Amal's words, I liked one of the things that she said. She said, are we preparing for a wedding, or are we preparing for a marriage? That's something to think about. Because there are too many relationships that are victims of focus on the outward, the appearances, the shell, and lack of focus on what really matters in a relationship. And unfortunately, the stories about that are too many. You know, stories of people who invested so much money, invested so much emotions in something, only to see because of petty disagreement, because something insignificant, it comes crashing down. Brothers and sisters, the journey of marriage starts with me as an individual. If I'm going to have a successful marriage, I need to really focus on building myself up way before I actually get married. Because I am going to be half of this household that I'm building. What am I going to contribute to that picture that me and my spouse are going to build together? Who am I? How is my faith? What is my faith all about? Is it about character and khuluq? Is that what it's about? If that's what it's about, then I'm in the right direction. As our beloved Prophet ﷺ says, أَكْمَلُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِيمَانًا أَحْسَنُهُمْ خُلُقًا. The most complete believers in faith are those who are best in character. There's a reason why someone who has beautiful character will be nearest to the Prophet ﷺ, will be most beloved to the Prophet ﷺ on the day of judgment. You know, brothers and sisters, how they say, when they talk about marriage, they say opposites attract, right? Opposites attract. Well, in fact, in the believer's vocabulary, goodness attracts. I'll repeat that again. Some people, when you look at marriage on the outward shell, they say opposites attract. Someone who's like this is going to be attracted to someone who's like that, and so on and so forth. I'm not saying that that's not real, but for the believer, goodness attracts. That's not taken from my words. That's taken from the words of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Al-arwahu junudun mujannada, fama ta'arafa minha i'talaf, wama tanakara minha ikhtalaf." Prophet ﷺ is teaching us something very real about human beings. We gravitate towards those who we have common ground with. So if I'm not built up right, if in me in my personal life, some people they think that, I'm gonna get it all out of my system. I'm gonna do every possible sin that's out there, and somehow I'm gonna get married to a sister that does qiyamul layl and siyamul nahar, and she's gonna make me the best person in the world. Or vice versa. I'm gonna be an awful human being with a double life. No one else is going to know about it, not even my parents. And then when it comes to marriage, I'm somehow going to flip the switch and I'm going to be with a really good woman. Yeah, and then, wasn't the wife of Fir'aun one of the best women in human history? Yes, yeah. But no, brothers and sisters, that's not the way it works. The Prophet ﷺ tells us goodness attracts. That I'm going to gravitate towards those who I am like. And that's what this hadith actually means. There's another verse in the Quran that emphasizes this. Allah Azza wa Jal says, الْخَبِيثَاتُ لِلْخَبِيثِينَ وَالْخَبِيثُونَ لِلْخَبِيثَاتِ وَالطَّيِّبَاتُ لِلطَّيِّبِينَ وَالطَّيِّبُونَ لِلطَّيِّبَاتِ. The verse is telling us that wicked things are for wicked people. And it doesn't stop there. Wicked people are for wicked things. Pleasant people are for pleasant things. Pleasant things are for pleasant people. That's how human beings are by nature. We're so inclined to get into modes of behavior, right? And we're so inclined to gravitate towards those who we find common ground with. Brothers and sisters, that's an important thing to keep in mind as I'm going in towards marriage. As I'm going in towards marriage, I also need to realize that just as it's a mithaq ghalidh, it's a serious covenant. One time I remember I was in the masjid and knock, knock, knock. I want you to marry me off to someone. There's no appointment? No, I want to get married right now. Where's the family? No family. Okay, who's the sister? Does she speak English? No, she doesn't speak English. Or what does she speak? Spanish. Do you speak Spanish? No. What is it? And the story gets more terrifying as it goes on. When I didn't want to do the katb kitab, the brother left, very angry. Why didn't you marry me right now? Brothers and sisters, getting that mithaq ghalidh is a serious thing. It's a miracle. Zawaj, two people coming together, is a miracle from Allah. That's not just kalam insha, me coming up with stuff. That's the Quran saying it. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا. Just as the sun and moon are a miracle of Allah, the interchange of day and night, just as the natural phenomena in the earth are a miracle, same way, husband and wife are a miracle from Allah Azza wa Jal. Why? Why? Because Allah Azza wa Jal designed us in a way that we grow through interaction. That answers one of the questions Sister Amal was asked. That why is marriage half my deen? Why? Is it just because the Prophet ﷺ threw a number out there? No. It's because ad-deenu mu'amala. Deen is all about interaction. My faith comes out in my behavior, right? So for that reason, this miracle of Allah Azza wa Jal actually helps me grow on a personal level. The most growth that you'll ever find in life is through dealings with people. And the most person you'll ever deal with in your life is وَالصَّاحِبِ بِالْجَنْبِ. As they say, the Quran says it. The Quran says it. When you go back to the books of tafsir, who's a sahib bil-jamb? The companion at your side. They say it's the spouse, the husband or the wife. وَالصَّاحِبِ بِالْجَنْبِ. Think about that for a moment. That's the most growth I'll ever have in my life. You know what? Growth doesn't come easy. Growth doesn't come easy. Some people, immediately when there becomes red flags, of course, this is not meant to say don't pay attention to red flags. There are certain red flags, again, deal breakers. Be very careful from them. And that's something that, perhaps our beloved Shaykh can talk to us about. The red flags that you should be very vigilant about before entering into a marriage. But to reflect on it for a moment, sometimes at the first signs of disagreement, people want to run away. That's it, this person's not right. I don't want to deal with this person anymore. I'm going to cut my losses and leave. But that's not the way it should be. Especially for this generation. They say that, I know there's some people who are not part of the millennials generation, so to say, but they say that one of the common characteristics about millennials is lack of commitment, is the difficulty in committing to something and following through with it, being very quick to give up on things. And this is something that our beloved Shaykh has been teaching us for a long time. How many marriages ended just because both parties decided to give up too soon? They could have worked on it had they had the willingness and the emotional capacity, but they decided to give up. And Allah Azza wa Jal says that it takes two to solve a problem. It takes two to solve a conflict. Some people, when things get heated, my ego is damaged, the other person needs to come say sorry to me. The other person needs to get on their knees and apologize. I'm not going to forgive them. No, that's not the way it works. Allah Azza wa Jal said, إِن يُرِيدَ إِصْلَاحًا يُوَفِّقِ اللَّهُ بَيْنَهُمَا. If they both have a willingness to fix something, then Allah will aid them in fixing it. Allah will aid them in fixing it. Brothers and sisters, marriage is a miracle. It's a miracle worth preserving. And this miracle actually exposes the true content of our character. That's something that's not, again, it's not an easy process. Growth was never easy. Growing through life, the best growth that you could possibly have is through adversity. through difficulty, through overcoming challenges. That builds a person's nafs up. Having to deal with loss, whether it's financial or family related or physical or whatever it might be. Dealing with loss and overcoming that loss and learning how to manage it. That's what makes people great. So again, some of these words that might come out I know people might have gone through things and our lives aren't perfect. Our lives aren't perfect, and that's okay. Some of these words might come off strong, but sometimes we need to take those strong words in and process them. It's okay if our lives aren't perfect, and I may have made many mistakes in the past and things I regret and I wish I didn't do. Who of us isn't that person? Who of us is not that person that has done things that they wish they did differently? None of us could possibly be that person. And the example I think of the seerah of the beloved Prophet ﷺ. What makes it so special? Is it because it was perfect and beautiful and easy through and through? No. What makes the life of the Prophet ﷺ so beautiful is it's so real. It's real. It's real life conflict. Dealing with an uncle who's your biggest antagonist. Dealing with your social circles, your society that wants to turn you out and cast you away. Dealing with people who are abusers, who are arrogant individuals, who are envious of the goodness. This is what you see in the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. So, if I'm looking for a perfect marriage, quote unquote, then I'm going to be waiting for a very long time. But if I'm looking for a marriage that I can build happiness with another person, then that's something that we can all do. We can all do with a lot of hard work, dedication, and also with Allah's aid and tawfiq. Because that's what the verse says. يُوَفِّقِ اللَّهُ بَيْنَهُمَا. Allah will give them tawfiq. We need Allah's tawfiq and prosperity in our marriages to be able to make them successful and good. It brings out, again, the true content of character. That's what marriage does, right? That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, خَيْرُكُمْ خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِهِ وَأَنَا خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِي. The best of you are the best of you to their families, and I'm the best of you to mine. Why did the Prophet say that? The Prophet ﷺ said that because true content of character is exposed behind closed doors. Anyone can come out in public and show whatever face they may show. But behind closed doors, that's where the mask is off and the true nature of who I am as a person really is exposed. So I need to make sure that the best that I have to offer is shown to those closest to me. That's an important value to have as a husband, as a wife. That those closest to me need to see the best. If they see the worst, that doesn't speak well to our faith, our iman. Brothers and sisters, the Prophet ﷺ teaches us a lot about this. The Prophet ﷺ showed us that a good marriage, a healthy marriage is founded upon service. It's not about me being served. If my marriage is about me being served, the other side needs to come. He needs to come to me and serve me. If that's what it's about, then things are going to sour. When it's about benevolence, when it's about being good to the other side, then Allah Azza wa Jalla will put an immense amount of barakah in that household. Blessings in that household. Sayyidah Aisha was asked about this. Sayyidah Aisha, Sayyidah Aisha, ما كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يصنع في بيته. What did the Prophet used to do at home? So she said, he was كان في مهنة أهله. He was in the constant service of his family. I remember the subject of sakina coming up in one of the questions. I don't remember exactly what the question was, but brothers and sisters, our homes are supposed to be places of peace and tranquility. Why? Allah said so. What did Allah say? وَاللَّهُ جَعَلَ لَكُمْ مِن بُيُوتِكُمْ سَكَنًا. Allah has made your homes a place of sakan. What does sakan mean? We refer to a home as a sakan. What makes it a sakan? Because it's supposed to be a place of sakina. It's supposed to be a place of tranquility. As they say in English, right? Everyone can have a house, but a family makes a home. The residents of the space actually make that space into a home. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made this process of marriage one in which one person or both people seek sakan and tranquility in each other. We find that the Prophet ﷺ also teaches us that small gestures can go a long way. Small gestures can go a long way. Sometimes between husband and wife, problems, actually there's very early signs that a problem is brewing. It might be days in the making. Sometimes it might be weeks or months in the making. It might stay brewing and then it reaches a tipping point and it might explode. In order to avoid that, the Prophet ﷺ teaches us how to diffuse the possibility of conflict with small gestures of positivity. When the Prophet ﷺ tells us, "Ibtisamatuka fi wajhi akhika sadaqa." When you smile in your brother's face, it's a charity. Why is it a charity? It's a charity upon yourself and upon your brother. Why? Because it brings positive energy to the interaction. There's a reason why the Prophet ﷺ teaches us that when we enter our homes, the first thing that we should start with is what? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. There's a reason why we start from a place of peace and salam. Some people, when they enter their home, immediately anger, enraged, right into the conflict. Why didn't you do this? Why did you say that? Why did you forget this? So on and so forth. When I make that the basis of interaction, everything will collapse. When I make those initial interactions on a positive note, it'll help diffuse a lot of things that are totally unnecessary when it comes to dealings between husband and wife. Al-ibtida' bis-salam, starting with salam. Starting from a positive note. Making sure that instead of making dua against your spouse, again, because things could become heated. You might think, well, if you're not married, you're like, why on earth would I ever do that? If I want to be in a relationship with a sister, why on earth would I ever make dua? Or a brother, vice versa, goes both ways. Why would I ever do that? But life shows us that sometimes when things get messy and really heated, sometimes people forget benevolence between each other. And that's something very scary. You find, by the way, I was going to hint towards this in the end. Make sure you get this book. This is our beloved Shaykh's book. He wrote it about marriage. It's available in the bookstore, in Arabic and in English. That's one of the things he says in here. He has advice for the husband, advice for the wife. Small things that you could do that could go a really long way. One of them, smiling when you enter your house. Saying salam when you enter your home. We need this. We all need this. Whether you're not married or you're already married, we need these types of advices. Those types of reminders. I don't have it all figured out. And I'm never going to get it right from the first time. And that's okay. Again, I'm going to caution. Sometimes some of this might come off hard because the realities of people are really complicated. If we want to speak in the clouds and say the Prophet said this and the Quran says that and speak in a very easy and soft tone, then we're going to overlook a lot of the problems that people are actually dealing with. When it comes to the realities of people, it's very complex. Sometimes the difficulty in a situation might arise because of the difficulty in me as a person. I might make something small 10 times worse because of how I'm choosing to address it and deal with it. You know what? That's something that's difficult. That's difficult to admit about myself. It's difficult to reach that point of realization. I'll say, you know what? I probably should have done this a different way. I probably shouldn't have been this intense when I was speaking about that. I should have probably overlooked that. If Allah teaches me that He overlooks much wrongdoing, why can't I replicate the same thing when I'm dealing with others? Allah Azza wa Jalla says it. وَيَعْفُوا عَنْ كَثِيرٍ. He overlooks a lot of wrongdoing. If I make the basis of my marriage that the other side needs to be utterly perfect or they're absolutely unacceptable, then I'm setting myself up for a lot of pain. They're not going to be utterly perfect. No. And if I follow and pursue every flaw and every difficulty, then our marriage might be put in a great deal of perils. Great deal of perils. Brothers and sisters, we learn a lot from our beloved Prophet ﷺ and his example. That's something else that I urge. And this is not just for husbands. We learn the Prophet ﷺ's character as a husband. But his character is also applicable to the wives as well. His النبي أولى بالمؤمنين من أنفسهم وأزواجه أمهاتهم. We have an example in Azwaj, and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the best of examples for the believers in general. We have an example in the wives of the Prophet, and we also have an example in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself for both husband and wife. We learn a lot from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's example. I encourage every husband and wife, invest some time in reflecting on the prophetic character, because it teaches a lot about how to win over hearts in general and how to win over the heart of the person that's closest to you. One example is the Prophet ﷺ was a very down-to-earth person. Prophet ﷺ, and he is Khatam al-Mursaleen, shows us that he would allow his spouses to express themselves. One time, the Prophet ﷺ spoke to Sayyidah Aisha, and he said to her, إِنِّي لَأَعْلَمُ إِذَا كُنْتِ عَنِّي رَاضِيَةً وَإِذَا كُنْتِ عَلَيَّ غَضْبًا. I know when you're happy and I know when you're upset. I know when you're happy and I know when you're upset. And you might say, who's going to be upset with the Prophet? He's the Prophet. He's as best as it comes. That's a message for every husband. If the Prophet's wife was upset with him, then good luck. If the Prophet ﷺ's wife was upset with him, that shows us it's a reality of life. It works both ways, by the way. It's not just the wife being upset with the husband. It works both ways. But she said to him, كيف ذلك يا رسول الله? How? He says, أما إذا كنت عني راضية قلت لا ورب محمد. You say, no, by the Lord of Muhammad, when you're happy with me, you mention my name. And then when you're upset, you say, no, by the Lord of Ibrahim. قلت لا ورب إبراهيم. Take a look at this. What did she say in response to this? She said, أجل والله ما أهجر إلا اسمك. She said, Wallahi, I will never abandon anything but your name. She loved the Prophet. That's not because she was upset with him. She learned to love the Prophet ﷺ because he was a beautiful person. Who would not love the Prophet ﷺ? Sometimes you might love someone, but something you wish didn't come out comes out. Because we're human beings. It happens. You might love someone, but something ugly inside you might come out. But we learn from the Prophet ﷺ that still he had a great deal of emotional intelligence. He knew how to captivate the heart of a Sayyidah Aisha, in fact of an ummah altogether. Take a look at this example. One time, it says hadith, it's reported in Sunan Abi Dawood by Nu'man ibn Bashir. He says, استأذن أبو بكر على النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فسمع صوت عائشة عاليا فلما دخل تناولها ليلطمها لا أراك ترفعين صوتك على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فجعل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يحجزه وخرج أبو بكر مغضبا. This hadith tells us Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he's the right hand of the Prophet, and he's also the father of Sayyidah Aisha. What happened? There's a lot you could actually reflect on in this. Abu Bakr loved the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam so much. He walked in, he heard his daughter yelling at the Prophet, yelling at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Think about that for a minute, right? And what did he do? This actually, a lot of things to reflect on. We need so many workshops on this. The father siding with the husband because he knew his daughter was wrong when she spoke out of turn with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's hard to see. That's hard to see someone so biased and impartial that when they see someone close to them wrong, they actually confront them. Why was she wrong? Of course, because maqam al-Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So what did he do? He wanted to smack her. That's what the hadith says. فَتَنَاوَلَهَا لِيَلْطُمَهَا لَا أَرَاكِ تَرْفَعِينَ صَوْتَكِ عَلَى رَسُولِ اللَّهِ. What are you doing? You're yelling at the Prophet? So then the Prophet ﷺ began protecting Sayyidah Aisha. The husband protecting his wife from her father. Now, that's uncommon, even though sometimes now, unfortunately, with domestic violence and situations, you might even find a situation like that. Unfortunately, sometimes you might find a mother and father abusive and the husband protecting the daughter from her own parents. You find those types of situations. So what happens here? فمكث أبو بكر أياما ثم استأذن فوجدهما قد اصطلحا فقال لهما أدخلاني في سلمكما كما أدخلتماني في حربكما فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قد فعلنا. He came and he found them, they made up. They made up. Think about that for a moment. Yeah, of course they're going to make up. It's Rasulullah and it's Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha. But that's a lesson for us. There's guidance in that. That after conflict, we need to strive for a resolution. We need to get past it and put it behind us. If we let it consume us, then everything's going to be lost and ruined. Everything that we hold dear and near is going to be ruined because of sometimes actions, rage, anger, foolish behavior. So we learn from this. He said, bring me into your joy as I was part of your anger the other day. So then the Prophet ﷺ said, we'll do that. We'll do that. That's something else we learn from the Prophet ﷺ. You know, the Prophet ﷺ had, and again, you know, these words are for all of us, brothers and sisters. Again, you know, we all need to work on ourselves a whole lot. If marriage is about growth, and growth lasts a lifetime, because growth never stops. Growth never stops. It's from cradle to grave. If marriage is about growth and growth lasts a lifetime, then I better believe that I'm going to continue to make mistakes to the very last day of my life. Yes, that's going to happen. And I'm going to grow through those mistakes if I'm a sincere person. If I'm a person driven by whim and driven by arrogance, I won't grow. I won't grow. These are worst qualities, some of the worst qualities to have as a husband or a wife, driven by hawa, whims, or driven by arrogance and ego. And we learn from the Prophet ﷺ that he had a deep spiritual relationship with Aisha. It wasn't just about them having a family together. No, we'll actually learn that the Prophet ﷺ invested a lot in teaching Aisha, to the extent that she was one of the most scholarly among the companions. That wasn't just because she was sharp and intelligent. That was because he actually invested time in developing that aspect of their relationship. You find that the Prophet ﷺ one time was doing qiyam, and he was doing qiyam until his feet were swollen. And the Sayyidah Aisha came telling the Prophet that, why are you doing this? She said to him, Ya Rasulullah, لِمَ تَصْنَعُ هَذَا وَقَدْ غَفَرَ اللَّهُ لَكَ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِكَ وَمَا تَأَخَرَ. Why are you doing this? So then he told her, why shouldn't I be a grateful servant? أَفَلَا أَكُونُ عَبْدًا شَكُورًا. She was there to see that. He invested spiritually in the relationship. Not only that, the Prophet ﷺ was a loving person. He was an empathetic person. You guys know the revelation about tayammum. I'll summarize it. It's a longer hadith. It's an authentic hadith. How did we get how to do tayammum? Where did we get that from? That was by the blessings of a Sayyidah Aisha. How did that happen? She lost a necklace. Lost a necklace? Yes. She was on a journey with the Prophet ﷺ and the army of the Prophet, or the caravan, or whatever you want to call it. And when they rested in an area, she noticed that she dropped her necklace somewhere. She dropped her necklace somewhere. And the Prophet ﷺ delayed the whole group in search. Everyone was searching for who? For what? For Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha's necklace. Because the Prophet ﷺ was empathetic. He cared. To the point that her father, again, he got really annoyed with her. He came to her and he said, Aisha, Ya Aisha. He said to her, حبستي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم والناس وليسوا على ماء وليس معهم ماء. You stopped everybody just because you lost a necklace? The Prophet ﷺ could have kept on going and said, you're not that important. But she was that important to him. You're not that important. She was that important to him. Right? So he stopped everybody and they all started looking. And they didn't have water. So the Prophet rested for the night. And then what happened? When the Prophet ﷺ awoke, he didn't have water to make wudu for salah. So then we found that the verse of tayammum was revealed, and the companions, one of them, he said, مَا هِيَ بِأَوَّلِ بَرَكَاتِكُمْ يَا آلَ أَبِي بَكْرٍ. This is not the first blessing to come from your home, O family of Abu Bakr. Speaking about Sayyidah Aisha. You see how sometimes goodwill and goodness brings a lot of barakah along with it. Brings blessings, right? Sometimes when people are very stingy with their goodness, it causes a lot of problems, unnecessary problems. Just be good. Do what you can. Try your best. You will be surprised what doors will open. There's actually a story that's really worth reflecting on. I don't want to take too much time because I really want to benefit from Shaykh Qatanani, so I'll try to close soon. But this story actually answers one of the questions. Look, is physical attraction in marriage important? The Prophet ﷺ said yes. انظر إليها فإنه أحرى أن يؤدم بينكما. Look, because it is better for you to confirm and make sure that there's going to be, certain compatibility between you two. Yes, it's okay to look at physical attraction, but you get what you choose for. Look at what this woman companion chose. Look at Julaybib. You guys know the story? Who knows the story of Julaybib? You guys know the story of Julaybib? A few people raised their hand. Take a look at this. One time, the Prophet ﷺ went to one of the Ansar, and he said to him, marry me your daughter. The Ansari misunderstood. He was like, of course, Ya Rasulullah. Of course I'll marry you, my daughter. He got so happy. And he went to inform his wife. And then the Prophet ﷺ saw him and he said, لست أريدها لنفسي إنما أطلبها إنما he said قال فلمن يا رسول الله قال لجليبيب. He said, I'm not asking for myself. I'm asking for Julaybib. And by the way, Julaybib was one of the special needs companions, right? He was one of the companions with a physical deformity. So the companion was taken aback. He didn't know what to say. What did he say? How did he try to get out of this difficult situation? He said, أشاور أمها. Give me time, let me go talk to her mother, right? أشاور أمها. So فأتى أمها فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يخطب ابنتك. So he said to her that the Prophet is asking for your daughter. So she said, نعم ونعمة عيني, of course. Yes, we'll say yes right away. So then he said, إنه ليس يخطبها لنفسه إنما يخطبها لجليبيب. He's not asking for himself. He's asking for Julaybib. فقالت أجليبيب ابنه أجليبيب ابنه لا لعمر الله لا تزوجه. So he said, who is Julaybib? Why is the Prophet asking us? Why is he putting us in this difficult situation? Is Julaybib his son? Is Julaybib his son? And she said, don't marry her off. And then the girl, she was smart. Again. You get what you choose. You get what you choose for in life. Does not mean to go marry anyone that you absolutely have no compatibility with. Not saying that. But what am I really making a priority? What really matters? That's a deep question I need to ask myself. So she said to her parents, she was smart. She said, أتردون على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أمره ادفعوني فإنه لن يضيعني. She said, you're going to say no to the Prophet? No, I want to get married to him. The Prophet's not going to make my life in vain. So then the father went and accepted on behalf of the girl. And when the Prophet ﷺ learned about who this girl was, he said, اللهم صب عليها الخير صبا ولا تجعل عيشها كدا كدا. He said, oh Allah, give her goodness in abundance and don't give her a hard life. You know what? Soon after they got married in Uhud, Julaybib istushhid. He was martyred. He passed away. And as soon as her iddah finished, every companion wanted to marry this woman who the Prophet ﷺ made dua for her. That shows you that sometimes if I go with the shallow appearance of things, I might deny myself from a lot of goodness. But sometimes if I look beyond that, then you never know what goodness might await behind certain doors. As Allah Azza wa Jal, He says that وَلَا تَمُدَّنَّ عَيْنَيْكَ إِلَى مَا مَتَّعْنَا بِهِ أَزْوَاجًا مِّنْهُمْ زَهْرَةَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. Don't get deceived by appearances, because if you do that, then you might find yourself walking away with something that isn't really worthwhile. Brothers and sisters, there's a lot of things that we could say. I'm going to just list off a few things and conclude and pass it over to our beloved Shaykh. When it comes to the foundational characteristics in marriage, we summarize the following. The first thing, mercy. It's taken from the verse. If mercy is lost in a marriage, the marriage will go downhill. Being amicable and friendly, that's important. Yeah, during the Kitb period and during engagement period, everyone's going to be amicable and friendly. No, being amicable and friendly after everything's all said and done and it's just you two together building your home. الْمُؤْمِنْ يَأْلَفْ وَيُؤْلَفْ وَلَا خَيْرَ فِي مَنْ لَا يَأْلَفْ وَلَا يُؤْلَفْ. Being easy. Oh, this one is a really important one. Being easy. Having gentle ease. الرِّفْق. إن الرفق لا يكون في شيء إلا زانه ولا ينتزع من شيء إلا شانه. The Prophet ﷺ tells us whenever gentle ease is found in something, it makes it look good. It makes it look beautiful. Sometimes the character of the person could be so much more captivating than their appearance. He says that when it's stripped from something, it'll make it look ugly. من يحرم الرفق يحرم الخير. Whoever's denied gentle ease is truly denied goodness, replacing the bad with good. The willingness to correct and modify. If I'm not going to be perfect, then I should be inspired by the verse, إن الحسنات يذهبن السيئات. I should accept that for myself, and I should also accept it for my spouse. إن الحسنات يذهبن السيئات. Goodness does away with badness. There's different types of people. Who am I going to be? One type of person is that person the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ شَرَّ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَتَّقِيهِ النَّاسِ اتِّقَاءَ فُحْشِهِ. The worst type of person that you never ever want to be with in any type of relation, let alone a marriage relationship, is that person who is so obscene that people avoid from fear of the harm that they'll cause. That's not someone to get married to, ever. Husband or wife, brothers and sisters, when it comes to types of people, the Prophet ﷺ tells us there are people who are slow to get angry, quick to forgive. Slow to get angry, quick to forgive. Those are the best types of people. بطيء الغضب ألا وخيرهم بطيء الغضب سريع الرضا. And then slow to get angry, slow to forgive. That's the second type. Slow to get angry, but slow to forgive. Quick to get angry, but quick to forgive. That's another type of person. The worst type of person. Quick to get angry, slow to forgive. When it comes to marriage, there's things that I need to always be aware of. There will always be points of contention. That's a reality of life. وَلَا يَزَالُونَ مُخْتَلِفِينَ. That's a reality of dunya. There will always be points of contention. Even between good people. As we saw between stories from the companions, Ali and Fatima. One time Ali and Fatima, radiallahu anhuma, they got into a quarrel. Ali left the house, he was angry. Where did he go? Not to a hookah lounge. Not to hang out with his friend. No. He went out to the masjid. He slept in the masjid. The Prophet ﷺ saw him sleeping and he came and woke him up and he said, "Qum Aba Turab." Get up, oh dusted one, because his clothes were covered with dust. Beware of rage and anger. Brothers and sisters, that's an important characteristic in marriage. That's something that devastates people and marriages. Rage and anger. Beware of mistrust. إِيَّاكُمْ وَالظَّنَّ فَإِنَّ الظَّنَّ أَكْذَبُ الْحَدِيثِ. Beware of mistrust. Having good assumptions of each other. Beware of toxicity of arguing. Toxicity of arguing and pursuing the flaws of the other. That's why the Prophet ﷺ says, أَنَا زَعِيمٌ بِبَيْتٍ فِي رَبَضِ الْجَنَّةِ. I promise a house in Jannah for someone who leaves argumentation even when he's in the right. Cultivating happiness and building love. It's not about being perfect again. It's about becoming better through the process. Protecting our homes. Investing in our personal development. وَأْمُرْ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَاصْطَبِرْ عَلَيْهَا. وَأْمُرْ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَاصْطَبِرْ عَلَيْهَا. Enjoin upon your family to do good things and be patient in doing so. And also, overlook and forget much wrongdoing. And that's why we're called insan. They say one of the reasons why human beings are called insan, why? لِنِسْيَانِهِ. Because of his forgetfulness. Is forgetting a bad thing? Sometimes forgetting is a blessing. Sometimes forgetting is a blessing. If someone wants to have a successful marriage, but continue to remember things that happened 2 years, 5 years, 10 years ago, that person will never be happy. That person will never be happy. If I want to be happy, I need to be beautiful on the inside. As they say, there's a line of poetry. It says, وَالَّذِي نَفْسُهُ بِغَيْرِ جَمَالٍ لا يرى في الكون شيئا جميلا. If I'm not beautiful on the inside, I'll never see anything beautiful. The one who has no beauty on the inside will never see anything in this universe beautiful. That's one of the things also to reflect on. There's so much more to say, and inshallah I'm sure Shaykh Qatanani will fill all the gaps and add to that an abundance of knowledge and wisdom, and I look forward to learning from him. Jazakumullah khair, barakallah feekum, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. تفضل مولانا.